Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. My guest today is one of my dear friends, and I was so pleased to speak with him because he has a perspective on life and differing opinions with friends and family across the spectrum that I really admire and I think is very, very important, especially at this time in our country. I just love talking to him. You're going to enjoy it too. Without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Ralph Barsi. Ralph, God bless you, sir. Thank you for coming.
And God bless you, Matt. It's always great to be here.
God, I can't tell you. I was looking forward to this all day.
Really?
Yeah, just because hanging out with you, and especially even if we're on mic, just hanging out with you is just so great. Like you bring me back to reality. You know, you remind me that the world is not so dark all the time.
You're a good man. Thanks. It's great to be here. The feeling's mutual. As I've told you before, I love your company. And I love sitting in front of you and kind of shooting the breeze about anything under the sun, you know?
Yes, it's a beautiful thing. Listen, we survived the election. I don't know if all of America has survived the election, but I feel like you were one of the people I knew that did not get nuts, like absolutely bonkers over this stuff. How did you do that?
Ignorance is bliss. No, I just, I have yet to see a politician or a president, for that matter, directly impact my life.
What do you mean?
Negative or positive?
Stop it.
No, I'm serious,
I've been
man.
saying this for years. What do you mean?
Well, it reminds me of a story when we lost Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. He died in September of 95. I think it was September 95. I'll have to look that up. And I was devastated because the Grateful Dead is one of my all-time favorite bands. And I remember calling my uncle, who's also my godfather, big music fan himself, just saying, oh my God, can you believe we lost Jerry today? He's gone. And my uncle said, look, he's never paid any of your bills. And come to think of it, he's never paid any of mine either. And I just thought that was such a trite response. It was just cold-hearted. But it also snapped me into reality. Like, son of a gun, he's right. I mean, the music has really impacted my life, still does to this day.
Right,
but
you still have
he's
the
never
music.
cut me any checks. If anybody has cut any checks, it was me to him. So I feel that way about politicians. I just do. So I don't, and I also try to not get too excited about stuff in life and not get too bummed out about stuff in life. No matter what, we must move forward. And, as you know, I've talked to you about it before on this podcast. If I could shed some light in the lives of others and make a positive impact, even if it's just one person each day or each week, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing on this planet, regardless of who's in the office.
God, man, good for you. Good for you. This is what I've been telling people. Like, I was telling my students this week, because some of them came in and they were like, really just upset about things. What was amazing? This girl came in and we were talking about canceling people. And she said, well, some people deserve to be canceled.
I hate that.
I was like, okay, God. I'm not going to say no. I mean, maybe, but like, give me an example. You know who she brings up? The woman who is now on the Supreme Court. She got confirmed, right?
Yeah, Amy Coney Barrett.
Right. And you know what she said? She was like, she is against women. So she should be censored. She should be canceled. I'm like, how do you mean she's against women? Yeah. Like, she's a woman. She said, well, she's pro-life. And I said, okay, well, look, which women then? And she was like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if some of the unborn children that she's pro-life for and protecting, if those unborn children happen to be women, then you can't say she's against all women, because those little girls probably, owe her a big one if she stops it. Now, again, I was very quick to say, I am not for or against this woman. I'm just saying, when you say she's against women and therefore she should be silenced and canceled, first off, that's a really bold statement, and you need to take a step back and look at more broad spectrum. And the bottom line is, you can have a leaning. I mean, I think the pro-life, pro-choice debate is a very, very touchy one.
That's a heavy one.
It's very complex and it's very heavy, and it's very not black and white.
That's right.
Like there's no like universally correct answer that everybody is like, see, and that's the right answer. If there was, we wouldn't be having this debate.
Of course.
So it's kind of like it almost seems to me that the more intense the topic, the more people feel justified in canceling the people that don't agree with them. Like the more worked up people get, the higher the probability that anyone who disagrees with your position will say you should be completely silenced. That's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I'm just trying to discern how people define intensity, or intense.
Well,
because it's varying degrees depending on a person's perspective, a person's experience. To some, this is a very, very heavy, meaningful topic. To others, it's not as heavy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The people that don't think it's that heavy, they're probably not going to be running around saying, if anybody says the opposite of what I think, they should be canceled. People are like, hey, look, people have a lot of different opinions on this. The people who are very affected by this, that's what I'm talking about. It's like the volume gets turned up in their head. The intensity gets turned up.
Yeah.
And I think we hit a point now where people feel like if they can convince you that it's this impactful, that it's this important, they are justified in, quote, canceling or silencing people. And it's kind of like, that's like a nuclear bomb, man. Like, you can't, that's something, I'm not saying never use it. I'm just saying that's something you really need to think long and hard about before you bring out to the forefront of the conversation.
Yeah. So it hasn't happened to me too much, but it has happened to me where I've thought or felt a certain way about a topic that has been the opposite of a friend of mine, and they've bailed on me altogether. Just, that's it. I'm done. And what cracks me up is they remain connected via social media to my wife and other friends.
Wait, back up.
But I'm canceled.
Back up. You have people that you're friends with that individually cancel you, but stay friends with your family and like neighbors.
Yeah, so they don't necessarily correspond or stay in touch, but they are, quote, connected still on Facebook, for example.
God bless it, man.
Yeah, it's a trip. I mean, and I could really sweat this and really get worked up over it, but I don't know. I have a life to live and I have things to take care of.
Are you saying that you just don't care? Is that what you're saying?
I do care, actually. So no, I'm not saying I don't care because I do. Because I'm, I don't know if it's my sign or, my zodiac sign or what, but I'm a pretty loyal dude. And if I have a circle of friends and I feel like, it's a great quote from Jim Morrison from The Doors, we've gathered together on this thin raft. And that's how I have looked at life in a lot of respects. We're on this thin raft. I've got my people with me and I've got their backs. And I presume wrongly sometimes that they have mine. And that's just not always the case. Now, over time, as you mature and get a little wiser and a little more seasoned, you realize, that that's not always the case, and I'm okay with that. But I've still got that loyal bone in me that I'm not going to untether myself from a lot of my friends,
just because they think differently.
Yeah. Oh, especially. I mean, speaking about a new president in the office right now, or going into office. There are a lot of beliefs and followers of that position that I don't agree with, and I'm not going to unplug myself from those people in my life.
Why not? Just talk about the group.
Well, frankly, because I learned from them. I mean, I'm not going to. If I were to meander through life with only people who are like me, no one grows or develops in the process. So I'm not necessarily saying I'm going to change my mind or the way I think about things because I have their perspective, but I'm definitely going to get a holistic understanding of all sides of any issue. And I think that's very healthy and right.
bro, you must eat kale for breakfast. That's way too healthy. Because I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you. And we're on that group text, right? Perspectives. We're on the group text. I have left the group text. I think once. And if that's not just a perfect.
Have you told your listeners about the group text? Do they know what you're talking about?
So Ralph and I are on this, I think, like 10 or 12 person group text through Danville Jiu-Jitsu. And we would see each other all the time, but obviously now we don't see each other and we are close friends. So we're on this big group text and there's so much trash talking, right? And like you see people, we never conversed this much over the spectrum of time beforehand. So, like you'd see each other at training, but outside of training, maybe you text with one or two people, but you're not getting texts from random guys or being part of a conversation at like 8 p.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah, because you're going to see that person next week on the mats.
Right.
And that's just not the way things are today.
That's right. So we don't see each other. So we end up talking at all hours of the day. Like I'll wake up and one of our guys, Jeff's in Germany. So he's talking trash while we're asleep. So sometimes you wake up 6:30 in the morning and there's a bunch of texts where Jeff's like, crapping on you, which is hilarious, right? God bless the man. But the point is it's one of those things where you have such a combination, right? It's just a motley crew of random dudes with such wide variety of values and political leanings.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody, you can't see the people, right? So you don't know if somebody's in the middle of a really bad day. And you'll pick up your phone, there are 60, 70 text messages, and it's all this trash talk. So I picked up my phone at one point, and somebody was saying something about like, if we just forced everybody in all of California to get COVID, some people would die, but we'd have herd immunity. I was like, leave right now. I just left. I left the group text. And of course, this is not somebody being serious. This is an engineer who is saying.
It's provocative.
It's provocative. They're get shucking and jiving, right? Totally. But I was like, exit conversation. I just can't. So it's really funny to see people just pull the ripcord. They can't be in the conversation anymore when somebody's just poking at them and we're going to.
Did I text you, Matt, when you bailed?
You did text me.
And I think I probably did each time you bailed because you've bailed more than once.
I bailed twice, I think. I've had a rough couple months, Ralph. Okay?
I have a hard time. It goes back to the loyalty thing because this is the same crew that in text, not trying to be provocative, but being sincere and genuine, people are saying, look, I've got your back. Everybody on this thread, we're all one. We're one big family. As part of Danville Jiu-Jitsu and what and how Danville Jiu-Jitsu has evolved as a team and as a unit, we've got each other, right? And then those very people, if they're thrown by, some provocative saying or, if somebody's talking trash and they decide they want to unplug altogether and bail, I actually take that personally. I probably shouldn't, but that's why I'm that guy that will ping you one-on-one going, well, hey, why did you leave? You need to come back to us. You can't take off like that.
Okay. I love that. Okay. My question is this. Do you think we are entering a time in society where people have been rubbed so raw everywhere? We are open nerve endings all over our skin. And you touch just one of those and somebody loses it. I have a neighbor down the street. I was having this conversation with my good friend recently, and he was like, what is it? Like, why don't people want to just talk? And it was like, well, the answer is obvious. Nobody listens, and nobody's actually interested in talking. And we have this neighbor.
They already have the answer.
If you say that you're for Trump and they're not, they already know who you are.
Yeah, you're
right?
disregarded.
And even when I've tried to have not Trump biting conversations with this guy, and again, he's a dear friend.
Sure.
It always comes down to, it's just this or it's just that. It's like there's no real conversation. And they brought up this lovely woman, that one of our neighbors down the street. She's the best. On Halloween, man, on a normal year, she will get a spread in her front yard. She will have wine, bottles and bottles. She'll have all these appetizers for adults. They have a fire pit going. She's she's the best.
All
right?
are welcome.
All are welcome. She goes hard. She's a landscape designer, and she actually completely redid there's this slope across the street from her where there's not a house. It's like this upslope. She redid the entire thing. It's like hundreds and hundreds of feet of this now beautiful wildflowers and all this stuff. Wow. She's across the street watering it with her hose and stuff. So she's that person in the neighborhood. She's wonderful. But she also has a Trump sign in her front yard with Trump dressed like a clown. It's kind of like, look, I understand you don't like Trump. There's nothing wrong with not liking a president or not liking Trump. Like, that's 100% fine. But they brought, in this conversation, they brought her up. And I said, well, look, why would anybody attempt to have a conversation with her when she's dressing the person they think is best in a clown outfit?
Sure, yeah.
And it's one of those things where everyone's so just like, oh, like, could you imagine somebody dressing Kennedy in a clown outfit, or like Reagan?
No, times have changed. Times have changed big time. I can't argue with what you're saying with respect to how exposed everyone's feelings are right now. It's such an intense time in life, especially in our country, and the last several months of 2020 have just been a roller coaster ride. Whether you're talking about the stock market or politics or religion or health and science and well-being or mental health of our children and people losing jobs, it's been bananas. So everyone is naturally on edge. But there's also a deluge of information coming across the wire on a minute-by-minute basis. People's mobile phones are blowing up all the time. People who have left our text thread, for example, are part of probably 10 different text threads with a big swirl of information and trash talking.
I'm only part of one text thread, actually.
Well,
you guys are my only friends.
It just fuels the fire for people, and they start, like you said, it's faceless in a lot of respects because we're not seeing one another. Right. We're not breaking bread like we should be doing.
You can't see if somebody's having a hard day, and you're like, hey, maybe don't mess. Maybe don't mess with this guy.
Not today. You know what I mean? And
so how do we get more of your loyalty, not just within our text group, right? Like, and I will not leave again, I promise. But how do we get more of that attitude of, hey, we should not and we cannot just sever ourselves from our community? Because that's what's happening, right?
It was 15 years ago. I went to a 4-day seminar/retreat hosted by Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins, in that 4 days, he was counseling a couple that was having a hard time with their marriage. And his direction to, I think it was the husband at the time, the two were arguing a lot and just really having a hard time and probably on the verge of separating. And his direction to the husband was, do you love your wife? I do. I love her wholeheartedly, actually. I've felt for years she's the woman of my dreams. Okay, very good. Well, then,
very good.
No matter what she says right now, I'm going to let her just argue with you and vent and talk about all the things that are exhausting her about you. As she talks to you, I want you to just look at her in the eye with that in mind. Like, no matter how upset you get right now, at the core, I love you very much and you are the woman of my dreams. And so get all upset with me. I will try to keep this as objective as possible, and we will work on the issues, not necessarily on each other. We'll judge the issues. We'll deconstruct the issues. We will resolve the issues.
Was he counseling these people in front of
live?
Everyone?
Yeah, in front of a live audience. And that really resonated with me, not just from a couple standpoint, because, I've been married for years, but just in life with friends. I love my friends very, very much. I'm grateful for things that I've learned from them, feedback I've gotten over the years from them, lessons that I've been able to take and use in my own life, that, basically just modeling what I've seen from them. And if they get all in a tizzy about a certain topic or issue, love them very much, and I want to hear them out. I want to let it fit, let it resolve naturally. And if I can intervene and help expedite the resolution, so be it. That's even better. But I'm not going to default to unplugging them from my life. I might maybe create a little more space, and not be so involved in their life, for example, but I'm not going to completely unplug them. That's very tough for me to compute. So when I see it happen, whether it happens to me or in our text thread, it absolutely blows me away. How I think people have forgotten about the group that they've decided at one point in life to kind of surround themselves with, that suddenly, even though they'll say, look, I love you. Yeah, I'll probably come back to the thread. Well, think about that for a minute, because this crew that's part of your thread, they're going to accept you when you come right back into it. And they're going to bust your chops a little bit when you come back, but we're not bailing on you. We'll be here.
Right. They didn't bail on you.
Correct.
How dare you bail on them?
Correct. And so
That's coming from somebody who's bailed twice.
Yeah, so I have a really challenging time with that. And I even said in the thread this morning when it happened, when so-and-so took off on us, I think I got a little fired up, and I wrote, hey, look, let it be known, you sons of bitches, that I've never bailed on you guys. And when I say in text that we all, all for one for all, we all have each other's back, I actually walk that walk.
Right.
And that means I'm not going to depart this thread, unless we collectively decide that it's going to dissolve. That's fine. I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
And I want to hear your point of view, and I want to hear his point of view, and I want to hear how provocative this one wants to be today in talking smack, but doesn't mean I'm bailing on you.
Okay, wonderful.
You can tell I'm getting fired up, man.
God bless you. But look, here's the thing that I keep coming back to is what we started out with when you said, look, I have never seen a U.S. president really affect my life. And I appreciate that, because that's what I tell my students. I'm like, look, 4 years ago, everybody said the country was going to implode when Trump got elected. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, people close to me cried. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what do you think's going to happen?
Right.
I mean, and again, I'm not saying he hasn't done things that have not affected my life or bothered me or whatever, but like, I always point out the window. I'm like, look out there. There's a pine tree. You think that tree cares that Trump's president or not? And I'm sure somebody out there saying, well, like the Environmental Act, well, whatever.
Hey,
like, come on, let's come on.
And again, to your point, people feel the same way about Biden going into office.
Yes.
People are crying. They think we're doomed.
Yes, and this is my issue. That it's kind of like, look, let's get away from this idea that if somebody thinks differently than you, then like you gotta bail, you gotta get out, because that's what we're seeing play out. We're seeing this feeling that when people feel that what is being said over a text, no less, right? Not even serious communication, right?
Yep.
In our text group where we're giving each other a hard time, people are feeling so affected, so personally affected, that they have to remove themselves from the text chain.
You know why? Because they're only thinking about themselves. That's why.
You think so?
I do. I think they're really thinking about themselves and not others. Now, that said, to your point, I can understand canceling someone out of your life if what they do and maybe what they think and how they present themselves doesn't align with your values. I can completely understand that. But that's not what we're talking about. I want to make that very clear to the listeners. We're not talking about that at all.
No, we're talking about just joking with each other in an obvious, joking, friendly way.
And these are grown men on the thread.
Right.
Fathers, husbands, successful businessmen. It's amazing to me.
When you come down to the level of training partners with people, there's a certain understanding that you have with each other that goes far beyond like we're just grown men. It's like no. If I pick you to train with on a daily basis and like we're on this journey together, right? Like Jerry's been training at our place for what, 10 years,
easily,
right? Like
yeah.
we've been on this journey with Jerry on an almost daily basis for a decade, right? To pick somebody like that to come along with you, because there are people that come in and I try to be really friendly, but I'm not gonna invite everyone into my life in the jiu-jitsu world, right? Because hey, look, there's a select kind of thing.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, look, it's beyond just grown men that are friends. Like, you're my boy. If we're training together, if I'm committing time to you, if you're committing time to me, then that means more than just casual acquaintances. But Jerry's gone.
I don't get it, man.
Anyway. It's so great. He's the best. He's really, there are people that are in our crew that are genuinely worried about the United States. Like, they think Biden is just gonna wreck the United States. Mm-hmm. And every aspect of that. And it's kind of like, what's the last president that wrecked the United States? I mean, wrecked. I mean, crashed everything. Half the country's blown off from a nuclear blast from Russia. Like, when's the last time that happened? Never.
Right.
Knock
on wood.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't happen.
Sure.
It's just, when I'm exhausted from the terror culture, which is like, you should be terrified of this guy. You should be terrified of what this guy's going to do. You should be, right? Like, at some point, you just have to say, look, you're probably wrong. You're probably wrong. We're probably not going to just implode. And like we saw with Trump, presidents don't have that much power.
Yeah, it's beyond, my deep concern is it's the whole concept of united we stand, divided we fall. That's what concerns me, is that we've become so divisive. And like you said, if you're not in, you're out. You're canceled completely.
Right.
I'm not a fan of that. I don't like that, regardless of what quote side you represent. I just think there's a better, more mature, kinder way to approach that than completely bailing on somebody.
Here's one for you.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Romney was running against Obama?
Sure.
And that tape came out of him at a fundraiser,
yes,
where he said, I'm effectively only running for 50%, or 48% of the U.S. is not going to vote for me, because 48% of the adults don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
And people lost their minds. And then Hillary saying the Trump supporters, which represented like 50% of the country at the time, are the deplorables, right? So Romney writes off 48% of the country. Then Hillary turns around and calls them all deplorables.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And now Biden's trying to say, hey, I'm going to be everyone's president. And I've had people tell me, they're like, well, Trump like led the country in divisiveness. Trump split the country. And I kept thinking back to the times in recent presidential elections. I'm like, the country has already been split by politicians.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not saying Trump didn't go next level. Like, hey, I'm great, I'm the best, I'm the best.
He was unique.
He was unique. Let's call that. But you have people just calling out this massive division and throwing it in people's faces for decades. And nobody, it's almost like people forget that this is a game that is played every 4 years.
That's right.
It's like, look, you take Texas, I'm taking California. We'll quarrel over like 4 states in the middle. Nevada somehow got its way in there this year.
Sure did, yeah. Yeah, it's just, it's exhausting, man. It's just exhausting it's ever present. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to create space and start, I don't know, focusing on the pine tree outside and who you can help today. And, if everybody can start making little steps like that, I think we'll be in a better spot.
Do you try to encourage that to be, with people? Because for me, I try to tell people that, and I realize the vast majority of people are not interested in actually looking at the pine tree. They're much more interested in saying, yeah, the pine tree's fine. Too bad Trump likely shortened its lifespan. Or like, too bad Biden is going to likes the tree more than he likes you.
Yeah, right.
And you're like, come on, God,
so
what are you
the
doing?
answer is yes. I do it constantly. I've got the privilege of leading sales reps, as you know, and I'm constantly emphasizing the importance to, as we've talked about, develop that attitude of gratitude. And sometimes you got to look at that pine tree and just be grateful that you can see it. There are people who can't see. There are people laying in hospital beds as we speak. We're sitting here hanging out, recording a cool podcast, shooting the breeze as buddies, and there's somebody kind of hoping they can make it through the next hour.
Right.
And so I'm grateful for the most basic things, and I try to reinforce that gratitude with the people that I surround myself with at work and in life. Just little reminders, who can you thank today? I typically keep a box of blank thank you cards on my desk. And so if something happens that I think it warrants a thank you, I will stop what I'm doing. I'll pull out my thin point Sharpie pen. I will bust out my thank you card, and I'll just write, I'm really appreciative of what you did today. Thank you so much for doing that. And I'll make sure that I've already got their address in my contacts list. I just put a little stamp on it, and boom, it's gone.
How come I've never seen one of those thank you cards?
Well,
there's more work to be done here.
Yeah, there's more work to be done. Also, I see you often, and I thank you in person.
Oh, shut up, man. Of course. Oh God, I actually realized that strategy, and I may have told you this before. That strategy was something when I was about 26. We were going through the 2008 crisis, and I was totally freaked out.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, I was just a one-on-one tutor, as was my wife, and things were not looking great. But I really developed in that time I had a great worry, great anxiety. I mean, I was in my mid-20s, and it was this big brouhaha nationally. And what I realized is every time I started getting really worried, if I just started listing off all the things I was appreciative for, then it got me through it almost. And it wasn't just to myself. I would call somebody. I'd call my mom, or I'd call my wife, or just whoever. And I'd just call them and say, like, hey, check this out. This is what's so awesome right now.
Love that.
Even though I was literally 2 seconds prior just sitting here worrying about, like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. Like, what am I going to do? Nobody's calling for tutoring and stuff. And it was amazing.
Do you still have access to those old lists?
I don't anymore, but I know exactly what I would list off.
You know what? I know you do.
Yeah.
you got a memory like a trap.
I remember where I was on the 24 when I made the phone calls, which direction I was going. Yeah. And it's just such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
that I think it's like for every bad thing you can list that might happen,
mm-hmm.
if you can list one good thing that actually is happening now, it's worth like 10 potential bad things.
Yeah, try drawing a line down the middle of the page, in your notebook. What good stuff that's going on, bad stuff that you wish would just go away. And look at it, see it on paper.
You know what's interesting? The things you should be most worried about, you're never worried about. The things you should be most worried about, like not having food. Like, you're never worried about your legs not working tomorrow morning. Right?
Right.
Those are the things that you should be jumping up and down and being like, oh my God, my legs work.
Well,
right?
That's what I mean by appreciating the pine tree, because you could see it.
Right.
I do actually think about that stuff on a regular basis. It doesn't worry me, but I am grateful for what I do have. I'm very aware of what I do have and who I have in my life.
You know what taught me that? Biting my tongue.
What do you mean?
When I was a kid, when you're a kid, you're like 10 or 11,
yeah.
You're eating like a popsicle or something.
Oh, yeah.
And you go hard into your tongue by accident. You're like, you're just, it's terrible. And you realize everything you do, your tongue just hurts. You know when you get it right in that perfect spot. And it's like every time it's just, so for a week, you're just wandering around like, oh God. And I would find myself as like a 12 or 13-year-old saying, I just wish that I was back in the stage where I didn't have this, because I would appreciate it so much. And I realized, like, why don't I ever appreciate the freedom of pain-free tongue movement when my tongue is not hurting?
Hey, I just had a crown replaced on my tooth, so I know exactly what you mean.
So I started at the age of 13. I would think about that concept when I hadn't bitten my tongue. And I would start moving my tongue around in my mouth and being like, this is so great. My tongue doesn't hurt. Yeah. How lucky am I? And I started doing that as a teenager, just personally. I wouldn't tell anybody I did it, but it started really recalibrating my appreciation for all of those things that you don't, I mean, it's a cliche. Like, you don't know how much it meant to you until it was gone.
That is step one to answer your question in making this world a better place. And making our society a little bit better than it is today, and a little less divisive. Put a 10 on people's forehead when you see them. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Let them bring the 10 to a 2, but you don't do it for them.
I thought you were going to say go around biting people's tongues. I was like, Ralph, I don't recommend that. That is not. We are in COVID times, sir.
I don't recommend that. No, definitely stay socially distant.
Keep that mask on.
That's right.
But at 10.
Yes, exactly. But I do think it's important that we start looking at people in a brighter, better light first before we just immediately start judging and, making these assumptions that are probably false.
Right. Do you know, you ever heard of Daryl Davis?
No.
So he's a blues musician.
Okay.
Lives in the South. Didn't grow up in the South.
Yeah. Keep going. I think I have heard of him. Keep going.
Right. So he was this international kid. His dad, I think, was in the service as a kid. So he lived all over, right? Always in international schools, always with a wide variety of people. And then he ended up coming back to the South. So when he was 10 or 11, he didn't realize that he was black.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
He'd been all over the world.
Is this the KKK
yes,
story?
Exactly.
Yes,
so
he
check
befriended
this out.
someone
yes.
from the yes,
not just one. Not just one. Hundreds and hundreds of people he has gotten to renounce the KKK through friendship.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's a horrific story. He's this like 10 or 11-year-old in Boy Scouts in the South, and they're doing this Boy Scout parade through town. I think it's like 4th of July, and people start throwing cans at him. And the troop leaders surround him and like take off, and he's so naive that he keeps telling him, he's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything. And they're like, shh, just get out. Just come on. And he goes home, and his parents, for the first time as an 11-year-old, they have to explain to him what racism is.
Oh, Lord.
And he was like, why would they care that my skin's darker? Because he had grown up
right.
all over the world with all people that look totally different.
That's right.
And he didn't get it. And that story kills
That's heartbreaking.
Me, it's heartbreaking. But he goes on. So he's playing blues. Okay, he's playing blues. He's a great musician, and this guy comes up to him and he's like, "Can I buy you a drink?" And he doesn't drink, so he's like, "Yeah, buy me a cranberry juice, whatever." He goes, sits down, and the guy's acting really weird. He's like, "God, your music was so great. I can't believe it." He's like,
"Thank you."
What's so hard to believe, man? Like, I'm a great musician, right? He's just not being an arrogant guy. He's just like, I don't understand. Yeah. And so it comes out. And he's like, "I've never had a drink with a black man," and he starts laughing. He's like, "You're not serious?" And you're like, "Yeah, for real." So takes out his card. I guess they give you cards. And he says he's like a KKK member. And he's like, "Well, that's absurd. You don't even know me." And he's like, "Yeah." So this was his first, essentially, project. This guy he started befriending. And then he calls him one day. He's like, "I'm leaving. I'm leaving the Klan."
I love that.
And he had started getting connected with these other people, these grand wizards, and he started interviewing them.
He's seeing the light.
And through his power of compassion and humanity, he was able to befriend these people. But the thing that's always caught me about Daryl Davis is that when I first heard about him, I was a teenager. I saw this documentary about him. And in the documentary, they show him at this Klan rally, right? Next to the Grand Wizard with the robe and the pointy hat. And there's Daryl drinking this orange soda, just hanging out next to this guy. And the guy's, warding off these people protesting and whatnot. He's like, "I have more respect for this black man than I'll ever have for you." And it killed me because it was obvious that there was this massive dissonance between I respect this black man, but black people are bad, right? And it was, no, Daryl is cool.
But everyone else.
And that, I swear to God, I swear to you, Ralph, it's the exact same thing going on with politics.
Yes.
As absurd as that story is, people will say, I know my dad loves Trump. Right, one of my great mentors from high school. He doesn't love Trump, but he's a Republican and he voted for Trump. And he's just like, "Look, I just don't side with Democrats on a lot of issues. I think there are a lot of problems." He's a business owner and he's had a lot of experience. He was going to UCLA when affirmative action was a big thing, and he happens to be Caucasian. Okay. He was an athlete, and they were like, "Look, back of the bus, son." He would go. He was telling me he would go to his appointment at the financial aid office because he did not grow up with money. Went to a JC and then transferred to UCLA. He's like, "I had a 10 o'clock appointment. I would show up to my 10 o'clock appointment early, and they would literally have walk-ins that were people of color or women, and they would leave me sitting there. People didn't even have appointments. They would take them before me. For hours, he would sit there." And so it's not like he blames the people that got in ahead of him. It's not like he has anything against black people, but the mentality, the ideology that a Caucasian male that happens to be straight and potentially with Judeo-Christian values is less valuable than other people. He's very much against that. So these people that I know are were Republican supporters, voted Republican, and it's almost like if I said people that voted, I'd be like the KKK guy. I'm like, look, my dad and that guy, they're okay, but every other Trump supporter is insane, right? They're all bananas. Right. It's like everybody knows at least one person that they likely respect who voted for both parties.
Yeah.
So how could we say, that's my neighbor, she voted Biden, she's cool, but every other Biden voter is crazy? Or like, that's my dad, he voted Trump, he's cool, every other Trump supporter is crazy. It's the exact same as saying Daryl's cool, he happens to be black, but he's cool, every other black person is terrible.
Unbelievable.
It's the same thought process.
Unbelievable. And say you're on your, you're on the verge of death and you get rushed to the hospital, emergency surgery, and that surgeon is a person of color that you have discounted for so long and they're about to save your life. Now what?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's how ignorant people are. It's amazing.
No. The doctor's cool.
Yeah.
It's the other black people.
It's the others. That's so stupid to me.
It's so, yes.
It's so dumb.
And I think people understand it in terms of the KKK because racism is so offensive. But discrimination based on political leanings is something that's almost like slipped under the radar.
Yeah.
It's almost okay for people to be
astounding.
like, look, I like you, Ralph, but you voted Biden. I hate you now.
Yeah, right.
Right? Or like, you voted Trump. I hate you now. It's almost okay. People understand it. They're sympathetic. They're like, well, we were friends, and then I voted. And then I found out he was Trump sympathetic, and people were like, oh, yeah, you can't do that. It's like, why not? Are you nuts? It's called the political system.
Hey, speaking of the political system, so you tell me about, how you feel having interviewed everybody who ran for office locally.
Man,
what an experience that must have been.
Ralph, oh my gosh.
Did you get to everybody?
I got to every single person running for the Board of Education.
Yeah.
Some of them multiple times.
Okay.
I got to 4 out of, I think, the 9 people running for town council. In fact, the 4 people that I interviewed got top 4 in the votes.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And I mean, I was actually thinking about that in that's likely not a mistake in that the people that respond, because I reached out to a lot of people, almost all of them.
Yeah.
And the people that responded were likely the ones that were taking up every opportunity to connect with the community. So I was like, all right, well, that actually probably makes sense. I don't think the interview, really moved the needle to a huge degree for them. But I am first off, so thankful that I was able to do that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I invited one, Laura Bratt. Laura Bratt is Zone 3. Okay. She's leading right now by like 300 votes, and there's still more votes coming, and they're still tallying everything. Okay. She was the woman who, at one of the forums, said that when they asked about SROs, school resource officers or safety resource officers on campus, essentially having an officer on campus, if they thought that was a good idea, she, in a moment, but she had like 60 seconds to answer. She was like, I don't think everybody feels comfortable around SROs. I think most people do, but there are some students that may not feel comfortable around them. And again, she had 60 seconds to respond. So she was giving, in her own admission, a complete partial fly by the seat of her pants answer.
Sure.
And
impromptu.
Yes. And she was just attempting to say, hey, look, she didn't say don't have them. She didn't say defund the police. She just said, I don't know that every student is comfortable around this, so having an armed officer wandering around campus all day long might be offensive to some of our students.
Sure.
And I don't think anybody could actually, I don't think anybody could actually disagree with that. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, people took that and went bananas.
How?
They were like saying she was a Black Lives Matter leader, or that she wanted to defund the police, and saying she doesn't care about the safety of our students. All of these things. Oh. Now, Laura Bratt, again, I met with her. She was fantastic. She was great. She's salt of the earth kind of person. Genuinely wants to help.
Sure.
Yeah, like really is volunteering her time. Here's this person who she has no political aspirations to like become president. This is like a starting point. Like she wants to help the community.
Yeah.
And to see that stuff happen to her.
The
backlash. And to know that people were doing it specifically because she was attempting to to gain a position on the Board of Education to help people, and to see that they weren't just like, okay, Laura, look, can you clarify? Which is ultimately what happened. She reached out to me and said, look, can I come back on and can we talk about this so I can give my position in full? So I had her back on and we talked for almost an hour.
Oh, nice.
And it was great. She got an opportunity to more fully express herself.
Yeah.
She's totally reasonable, obviously cares about the safety of children, but also wanted to say, hey, look, we need to take into consideration all of the kids' perspectives. I'm not saying don't have safety protocol. I'm just saying we need to, in this conversation, we should at least acknowledge this perhaps marginal group, which is totally fair.
Yeah.
But again, seeing that person get blasted like that by the just ravenous competition, it really opened my eyes. It was like, our community is really in trouble because Laura Bratt, one, is now likely going to be the board member for Zone 3. So all of these people that just went as hard as they could to just defame her and speak poorly of her, now she's supposed to be representing them, right? And I'm not saying, gosh, you shouldn't do that because you might get in trouble or something. It's just like, look, that sets up a really bad relationship right out of the blocks.
It sure does.
And why would anyone with any real skill or not skill, I'm not saying these people aren't skilled. What I'm saying is, who's going to run in the future? Seeing Laura, this intelligent, capable, very nice woman, why would anybody say like, well, that worked out so well for Laura, why don't I run next time? Like, she's getting no credit.
I think it's why we saw the candidates we saw for our presidential office this year in the U.S. We didn't see people who I think could do a much better job on both sides.
Don't you think that we had better options, though?
Oh, with respect to candidates?
Even within the Democratic debates, do you think we had better options than Biden?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that it's who's running. I think there are people of competence and ability and skill that were running.
Yeah.
I think it's the political machine that selected Biden.
Correct.
That sucks.
Correct.
Right? Like,
yeah, and now the American people have to deal with the lesser of two evils in their mind, and that's how they discern and decide on who to go with.
I don't know that everybody thinks that.
Well, I think a lot of people do.
I think a lot of people do.
Lesser two evils. Well,
yeah,
of course, because we were just talking about how divided the country is. It's no matter who's representing my side, that's the person I'm going for.
Right. I think there are a lot of people who genuinely could look past all of the shortcomings that other people saw from Biden. I think there are a lot of people who are like, he is perfect, or he's great,
absolutely,
or he's like 80% awesome. Instead of seeing, maybe, are we too cynical to just see like the horrendous aspects of both of them? Like, maybe I should be drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, maybe. So, well, it coming back to the local level, it always surprised me when Ralphie was in Little League. I was a line coach. I was like third base coach, and I was always amazed at how fired up in a negative way the parents would get in the peanut gallery to me as a base coach, to the kids, to other coaches. They would get all hot and just really fired up on the baseball field in front of all the kids.
In front of the kids.
Yeah, in front of the kids, and it just, I don't know, all class went out the door, and it still throws me off to this day to recall those games when the parents here in Danville and our neighborhoods would just show such a bad side in those types of venues. It just so it's a nice microcosm, I think, of what we see in the country.
Yes. I've actually been really terrified lately about the nature of this girl saying that the Supreme Court justice should be canceled. That, to me, it was like, oh my gosh, it's actually trickling down, because you see that kind of behavior even within, again, our community. Another thing that came out as people are trying to get schools opened.
Yeah,
I interviewed these women several weeks ago that are outspoken advocates for for getting kids back in school. Okay, in the San Ramon Unified School District, and totally well researched, have been engaged in this for months and months, been meeting with like county health officials and everything, right? So very, very engaged, well-meaning, committed, okay? And there was somebody who disagrees with their position. The student at San Ramon, he's a senior, and he posted this thing on Facebook. He made a petition to say, hey, we should have a compassionate return to school. And the emphasis is, hey, we should not require teachers to come back if they don't feel comfortable for it. Now, the other women that I interviewed, they very much feel that teachers should be required to come back. And they're not saying no exceptions for anyone. They're just saying, look, there's a job that needs to be done and you are hired to do the job, just like a checker at Safeway or whoever, right? Like there's a job that needs to get done, and having first graders be on Zoom forever is not a good idea. Right. So one of the women criticized this petition. And by the way, she was invited to the website by the person who made the petition. So she was like, well, look, I don't think this is a great idea because we give them the option until when? Like, when do we force them to come back?
Yeah.
Right. And all these people in this community are paying ungodly amounts in property taxes, and their kids are really suffering, and they can't even go to work, some of them, because they got to watch their kid. So the point is, people lost their minds over that and attempted to get me canceled because I refused to take down the interview with her that happened before any of this went down. So I interviewed them days before this petition came out, before one of the interviewees had an exchange with him. Days. Had nothing to do. We didn't talk about this. It didn't even exist when I spoke with these women.
Yet
and
people wanted you canceled?
They
in what
demanded,
respect wanted you, like,
they wanted
the podcast?
They started reviewing negatively. They started crapping all over me, saying that I was kowtowing to this woman, that I was obviously in cahoots with her, that I was aligning myself with a child abuser.
Oh, stop.
All these things, writing, and these are reviews that stand on my website and on Apple Podcasts and on my Facebook. So they just went so hard. And I thought about it for so long because I was like, what are they doing? And then this girl in class is like, this Supreme Court justice should be canceled. And it's exactly what you're saying. Adults behaving poorly in front of kids is going to reproduce
they're going to
in
model
the
it.
kids.
Yep.
And these kids, my students who I respect, it's terrifying to me to know that they're going to take that attitude. It's not terrifying to me to think of this girl who said that going out into the world and trying to cancel somebody. It's terrifying to me that other people will get her canceled.
Yeah.
It's like, look, you're perpetuating an attitude that will be to all of our detriments.
Whether you like it or not, you are always leading by example. And the parents listening need to be reminded of that. You are always setting an example. People won't always tell you the example that you're setting in their eyes, but you are setting one. And you just have to be mindful of that. And it just breaks my heart to see what you're saying happen in our community, and watching it infiltrate our kids' community.
Well, here's the thing. I thought a lot about why I did not take down the episodes, because I refused. I absolutely refused. And there were a lot of reasons, but I think one of the biggest ones is that that's how you stop cancel culture. Mm-hmm. You have to do something. And again, I had no intention of being provocative. I interviewed these women. It went off without comment.
Sure.
Right? But you have to withstand the barrage of criticism and insults and come through the other side and say, this is not a tool that will be effective with me.
Good for you, man.
And if you can start doing that, if people can start doing that, and recognize that, say, restaurants or are there other businesses or people, just voices. It doesn't even have to be a professional endeavor. I mean, we don't get paid for this, right? Aside from a couple Coors Lights, but
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have people that are willing to put some skin in the game and just say no, then the community will continue down this path. Mm-hmm. There have to be people that start standing up. Mm-hmm. And again, this was a very minor stand up in my regard. It's not like I put like my livelihood on the line. So I'm not advocating somebody. I am not trying to equate myself to somebody who really put everything on the line. But I take this podcast very seriously, and I don't want people speaking poorly about me. But that's the whole point. like you have to have people that are like, fine,
hey,
say whatever you want.
You're putting yourself out there. You know what I mean? And that's that's possible. You know, when you're trying to make a difference and you're putting yourself out there, you could just be at home right now, you know, not making an impact at all. Oh, and on that note, I really like what you started doing on Instagram and, you know, the TikTok stuff. So now I don't subscribe to TikTok, but I know you will repost a TikTok clip to Instagram because I'll see the little TikTok logo in it. I think you're dropping too many F-bombs. But I do really like what you're doing. I really like, because I wish I had that when I was in high school. I'm not a math guy, not a strong math guy, but I appreciate the way you break things down like that and kind of reverse engineer the answer and show the kids how to arrive at the answer.
Right.
And you say it in such a nonchalant, pragmatic way. Like, and there it is. The answer's right in front of you. It is B.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I saw the one you did. You're like, well, we already know, you know, -8 is right here.
Right.
So there are no other -8s. Right. So there's our answer. Boom. Next.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm so torn about the swearing because I can live my whole life without swearing.
Sure.
The thing that's interesting about swearing in front of teenagers is, and I always swear on the first day. Like right up, I'm like, how the fuck are you?
Yeah.
And kids always look at me like their eyes get the size of like, you know, just lemons. They're like, what? So here's the thing. This is what I think. Kids always respond positively to it because I think what they realize is I'm being so just overt about it. They realize that I know they could go home and tell their parents, gee, Matt swore at me. I know they could do this.
Yeah, of course.
And they recognize that I'm not afraid of that.
Right.
So I think there's an air of authenticity that it brings. They're like, okay, he's actually being himself because he's vulnerable.
So I agree. I do think that authenticity is so important, but I do think it's even more compelling and more impactful when it's selective instead of just, you know,
Ralph, TikTok videos are only 60 seconds.
I know, but it's like, you don't want to overkill it.
You don't want to overdo it.
Because when you do drop it, it's like, woo! That's a
little spicy.
Man, that's a good point. He's right.
Maybe I'll wait till the end. It's motherfucking B.
There you go. That's fine. But
it's fine.
You see what I'm saying.
You know what's interesting? So I know nothing about social media. I have done no, I don't. I don't know anything about the algorithms. I don't know how to get like TikTok famous.
Join the party.
I've been a little TikTok famous. I've got 1,300 views on a couple TikToks. But check this out.
It's impressive.
What I've realized for sure is if I swear in the first 5 seconds,
it goes up.
That video will go up because people will be like, whoa, I thought he was just doing a math problem. So even if I just swear once, I'm like, 8, the motherfucking ocho. Here we go. And people are like,
I can understand that.
So people start laughing right away, so they stay on for the other 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I can play it straight, or I can get a little colorful away.
Maybe I just, this is see how I learn from others. Maybe I need to just start dropping a little more F-bombs.
I don't think you got to know your audience, baby.
You do.
You know, I mean, when you're dealing with 16-year-olds and you're trying to get them laughing about math.
Yeah,
that's
but I mean, I have
thing.
a 16-year-old at home.
Yeah, but you got to set an example. I don't swear in front of my kids.
No.
Can't. You know,
I mean, I do once in a while, but it's not often.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I am performative. You don't necessarily have to be performative at home. I mean, sometimes you do, but
is that one of the vocabulary words that you?
God, it's the I'm doing it tomorrow. I'm doing it tomorrow. I swear to God. Performative.
Are you?
Yeah, sure. I am now.
Let's come up with some.
Yeah, sure.
I have a Google Doc that's called Great Words Vocabulary.
Sure.
Because I like to write and I like to increase my vocabulary, number one. But two, I like to pepper them into my articles. So you want me to just read a couple?
Yeah, hit me with a couple.
These are just random words that I think are pretty killer. Cadre.
Okay.
Ilk. Exemplary. Reticent. Deviate. Accentuate. Congruent.
Okay, let's go one with ilk.
Ilk.
I love that word. So ilk is like a negative group, right?
Yeah.
Him and his,
I don't know if it's a negative group, but it's a group.
A group.
Yeah, like we're not of that ilk, Matt.
So
we don't associate with. We're not of that ilk.
All right, that's not my fucking ilk.
Yeah, that could work.
That's not that. I don't run with that ilk or that type of. I'm not of that ilk.
Yes.
Okay, great. Piece of cake. So the shot starts with me like typing something. You're like, hey, why don't you get a banner up at like San Ramon? I'm like, no, that's not my jam. And they're like, you say, no. But I've seen other tutoring companies do that. I'm like, yeah, that's not what I do. That's not the company I am. Like, but I think it would be effective. You should do what the other tutoring companies do. Like, I'm not of that fucking ilk, Ralph.
Nice. That's good.
And then it's like, and then it cuts to the goat screen, and you're like,
that's good.
What about a flyer?
That's good. I love that you have that bookend. You know,
that little thing at the end.
You finish with the goat.
It's strong. I love those words. I love that you're always trying to just improve your knowledge base.
Always.
Have you always done that as like a person?
Yeah. So pretty much always. You know, I've always kept journals, always kept lists. You know, I've got quotes in here and all kinds of stuff. Favorite quotes. I can go for days on that stuff.
Do you hold this as a means of inspiration? Like for me, like if I always have coffee in the house because I know if I need to go, I just pour myself a cup of coffee and I hit it. Do you have these things as like intellectual coffee? Like if you need a little inspiration, like you're having a down day?
You were talking about it earlier, you know, just keeping that list of things you're grateful for that you can refer back to. And in your mind, you've got a much stronger memory than I do. You could reference things quickly. Oftentimes, I'll find myself kind of revisiting these lists that I've created over the years, and it really helped me coming up in my career. I would notice little one-liners that some of the senior leaders would drop in a meeting, and I was like, "Oh, that's a good one," and I would just take a note of it, and then I would save it. I had a boss, I think we may have talked about this before, who was from the South, and he spoke in idioms. You know, you could swing a mule by its tail and we would hit 5 of the prospects that we need to talk to. You know, he would use little random things like that. Hey, Barsi, when we go into this sales call on Wednesday, don't step on your air hose. You know, things like that is how he would talk all the time. And I started taking note of them all and created an 8-page document on just the one-liners he would drop.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And so if I come across a killer quote.
Don't step on your air hose.
Yeah, don't step on your air hose. I actually have that list. We can go through a couple if you want.
Yeah, I would like to. You know who else is from the South that speaks like that?
Who's that?
Matthew McConaughey.
Yes. So now he just came out with a new book called Green Lights.
Yes.
I was listening to him talk about it on both the Tim Ferriss podcast and the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes.
And
Rogan even called him out on that. He's like, you got whiskey wisdom. You have these wonderful little
such a good
sayings.
Storyteller.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was so cool hearing him talk about how his family, they would like tell these stories, and if you lost the crowd, somebody else would take your story over.
Right.
And they'd finish it for you.
You're done.
You lose.
At the family dinner table.
Yes. How amazing would that be? It's like,
it.
I better make this good or someone's going to hijack my project and do it better.
You are who you surround yourself with. And when you're growing up, and if that's your family, and that the bar is raised in terms of how you tell stories, you better bring your A game, man. You don't want to be sitting on the bench. You want to bring it. You want all eyes on you when you're telling a story. And so that's how he learned the craft. And I loved listening to that.
Let me ask you something a little personal.
Yeah.
How are you trying to guarantee that your boys... McConaughey in the Rogan interview talked about how his parents, they would get mad at him. They'd give him a consequence for something they did, or they'd break up a fight between him and his siblings. And it was like they would refuse to allow you to hold a grudge. It was like that you would stay up all night, you would miss school, they would miss work. Yeah. If it meant that's what it took to hash it out and shake hands, walk away, then that's what it took. Yeah. But they refused to allow you to hold grudges. I find myself as a 38-year-old, I don't talk to any of my older siblings, and I try. Okay, I reach out to them. I send them texts. They're not interested for a myriad of reasons. It's all right. But I see my wife's family, and there are 5 siblings. They're on a group text.
Oh,
they
wow.
talk
It's
all
like
the time.
My wife and her siblings.
Yes, they don't mess around, man.
They're tight.
They are tight. They lean on each other. They help each other. They even if they're not best friends, because obviously there are closer and less close relationships within a 5-person group, but they're the opposite of me and my siblings. And listening to McConaughey talk about how his parents would refuse to allow him and his siblings have grudges.
Yeah.
I immediately got terrified because I started wondering, like, what am I doing to do that? What do you is that something that comes into kind of your headspace with regard to parenting?
It depends. I mean, grudges is definitely that's not been a topic of late at the Barsi house. But I think the way I want to answer the question is, sure, I think it's relative. There are certain facets of life that we pay more attention to than others. Holding grudges, let's say it comes up. To me, I'm always a believer of, you're the one holding the hot stone. If you're really angry with Matt and you want to harbor that anger, you're the one who's suffering from it, not Matt. So you have to learn to let that go. You also, we come from a Catholic family, and, we are all about forgiving as well. Forgiving others for things that they've done, making sure that you resolve problems and conflict with people. One of the episodes I was on with you, we talked about my brother, and a lot has changed for the better since that conversation. You and I have talked about it offline, but I'm happy to say that things have kind of gotten back to normal. Everything's good. We're talking to one another. He joined our family in Lake Tahoe 2 weeks ago for Ralph's 21st birthday.
How was it?
It was outstanding.
It's fantastic.
It was great. There was zero drama. I was prepared, however, in case something came up.
Sure.
I wanted to make sure he knew that we've already addressed this. This is resolved. Don't keep bringing up stuff that we've already resolved, because I'm just not gonna accept it. But I didn't have to have that conversation, and I feel like maybe it was through telepathy. He kind of knew, but also probably felt the same way. Like, there's no reason in bringing it up. We've talked about it, and I pray that you and your siblings can arrive at that. But those are lessons that we're teaching the boys all the time, even as they get older like this.
God,
because
that's great.
They're watching how we handle things.
I was going to say, you're setting an example.
That's right.
You're setting an example. Reconciliation in the family.
Yes.
I don't want my boys to end up, with that kind of stuff. I mean, I came from a very fractured household, so it was very easy. There's plenty of trauma to go around, but they're having a pretty good go at it so far. They love each other. My 4-year-old
firecrackers, those boys.
My 4-year-old calls the 6 and 8-year-old his boys.
I love it.
He's like, "Where are my boys? We gotta go get my boys."
They're good boys, Matt.
Yeah, they're so happy to be back in school.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, like they're
poor
just
guys.
losing their minds.
It must have been going bananas.
It's just bonkers, man. No friends, no interactions. The people up the street just kind of threw caution to the wind, and so you see them all out playing in the street.
Have you felt that way? The whole no friends, no interaction this year? Because I have.
I've felt what way? Like going crazy?
Well, yeah. Like
I've been on the ledge, Ralph.
Yeah, I have felt that. I'm a pretty social guy, and I really miss the crew. And that's why it really bothered me when Jerry took off from our thread this morning, because it's like, come on, man, I don't have much these days.
I don't have much, and you took a little piece of that.
I've got my band that we're starting to get back together. We're going to be recording a record in 2021. So I'm really looking forward to getting back with the band and playing with them again.
You're recording a record?
Yeah, we are. It'll be our 4th record. It'll be our 3rd studio record. But we've just, I don't know what prompted it, but we just collectively decided it's time. We're at this juncture now where we feel like we're all ready to get back into the studio. We've got a lot of material. We've been playing at parties and whatnot over the last decade that we need to put on wax. And so we're going to go into the studio and make our 4th record. We're pretty excited about it.
God, that's awesome, man. Good for you.
Yeah, man. So anyway, I miss my crews, my clusters of people, because I haven't seen anybody. And so when somebody bails like that, it just, I probably overreact.
No, I think it's fine. I think you know what I love about it? You know what I love? When Jerry bails, people are not like, oh no, what did we say? People are like, lame.
You're
lame.
exactly right.
They heckle him. He's not even there.
Right.
He's not even there. And we heckle him because we know he's going to come back.
He'll come back.
We know he's going to come back. When he comes back, we're going to make fun of him again.
Yeah, he'll come back.
It's like, look,
but
come
see,
on.
to my point earlier, and we'll all be there.
We'll all be there
with open arms.
We'll all be there. We love you, Jerry.
That's how we roll, man.
That's how we roll, baby.
That's right.
God bless it. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have felt it very much. I mean, I am not a really. You and I are close, but I struggled with a lot of social anxiety through my 20s. Oh. I know that sounds very odd, but for a long time, like you can ask guys we train with that have known me for a long time, I was very standoffish for a while until I was like, yeah, guarded. I didn't want to.
Well, it sounds like you said coming from a fractured upbringing, you had every right to be guarded. You can't. It's tough to trust. It's tough to kind of lean in because you don't want to be hurt.
Yeah, and I didn't want to. It was almost like I didn't want to overcommit in case the relationships went bad, right?
Yeah,
Even though I knew there was like these are my friends. But anyway,
it's a risk you're taking.
Yeah, but yes, no, it's terrible. It's terrible not having that connection. The only thing that keeps me going is being able to, hang out or do a little training here and there, and see guys occasionally. And I mean, I
miss it a lot.
I know. Apparently, like 6 months from now, people are saying things are going to get back to normal just a little bit. I don't believe that at all, but that's just me.
I don't believe it either.
I don't believe it at all.
I really think
it's just. I think they're going to come up with something else.
Earliest, Matt. I think fall 2021. We're going to start to see some sense of normalcy, but even still, as you know, it's not going to be normal. Like our office, for example. We have the option to work remotely through July of 2021, and you kind of think when we get to that point, they're just going to push it out to the end of 2021.
And people that are worried are going to have plenty to worry about in 6 months.
Oh,
in the summer of 2021, people that have been shut up in their houses, if they want to say, hey, look, I know there's a vaccine, but the long-term efficacy of the vaccine's in question. We don't know if that vaccine's going to last 6 months or a year.
That's
so
right.
Some people got it in January and February. Those people are losing losing the vaccination essential efficacy potentially in August. And the answer will be, we just don't know. Stay off my graphs because you can't come over. I feel like there's going to be a group of people who want to get on with their lives, and then there will be people that can or feel they should continue with this incredibly distanced kind of lifestyle.
So I'm the former, straight up. I have no problem talking about it. Speaking of music, a grammar school buddy of mine texted me this week saying that a group of people, and I went to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in Kansas City, Missouri.
Wow.
Long story short, my father used to work for TWA. And so we did a brief stint as a family because of his job in Kansas City, Missouri. Well, I befriended a couple people that became lifelong friends. A buddy of mine and I performed in the 8th grade talent show. We did a cover song of Van Halen from the 1984 record because it was 1984.
Sure.
So that was what people were listening to at the time. Well, we went on to play music together afterwards. And anyway, he's the one who texted me this week and said, hey, look, to celebrate, the loss of Eddie Van Halen this year, a group of Kansas City musicians are getting together at this really popular club in downtown, and we're playing like 40 Van Halen songs, and we're going to have a variety of musicians on bass, on drums, on vocals, etc. And I would love it if you would play drums with me on bass for 4 of the songs. Would you fly out to Kansas City to play with us?
Holy cow.
Like, I thought about that for a nanosecond. Yeah, of course. Let's go. Now,
I thought you were going to say, put me on Zoom.
So I pinged, yeah, right. So I pinged a couple friends that I know, in the area saying, hey, looks like I'm going to be there at the end of January. Would love it if you'd come watch us play. And I'm all fired up about it, forgetting that they are the latter. They're the ones who are very vigilant right now about being socially distant, being cautious. And I completely respect that. But I was all gung-ho about,
sure,
dude, we're going to rock. You got to come out. You got to represent. We're going to play killer Van Halen tunes from the first 6 records, that Van Halen produced with David Lee Roth. I mean, my favorite version of the band. And how could you miss this? Can't wait to see you. Here's the date. And I got the text like, hey, whoa, it's all going to depend on this. We got to make sure guidelines are clear on what we can and can't do.
Right.
We would love to see you. We will see you, but not sure yet if we're going to be, going to the club to watch the band play.
Right.
And I was like, oh, yes, right, of course.
Yeah.
Not everybody's down yet.
Man, Thanksgiving's coming up.
Yes. Oh, man.
What a trait. So for you probably, I mean, like, first off, for the people that hate their families, there's never been a better holiday. This is the best part of 2020, hands
Agreed.
down, for those people, because they're like, listen, Auntie Susan, I'm never going to see your ass again.
Nope.
Look, it's not for me, it's for you. And that's the great thing. For your older relatives that you don't want to see, you can argue that you're actually helping them by avoiding them. But I was thinking about it. We do Thanksgiving with a friend of mine down the street, Scott, generally, because they're from Canada.
I know Scott.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Scott comes over and we hang out, and I was like, look, this is what we should do, okay? Because they're pretty conservative with the whole health situation, and we're like, okay, look, this is what we're gonna do. Everybody sneeze on your wife, right? So Scott's wife, I'm like, the kids, you sneeze on her. And 24 hours later, we will go and get her a rapid COVID test.
Right.
And everyone in my house,
they'll
all sneeze on Lauren.
Yeah,
and my wife said, and Lauren will go get a rapid COVID. And then we'll know that person was like the petri dish for the whole family, and if they're fine, we don't have it. So
you got to take one for the team.
For some reason, the sneezing thing didn't go over well. But the point is, that was what I was advocating, and I was driving down here and just thinking, you know what? Here's the argument. If we know, where it's like, okay, well, look, we're not that worried if we got sick, right? Because we're all younger and we're all healthier.
Good point.
But it's the other people that should worry. Okay, can't we at least look at that and say, look, even in the incredibly small chance that one of us has it and we spread it, because I'm not like making out with Scott.
Yeah.
And if anybody's coughing or sneezing, like we're calling it off. But the point is, even if we passed it, we're all quarantined professionally anyway.
Right.
Scott's a rowing coach. And guess what? Ain't no rowing going on right now.
Nope.
And I'm a tutor, but when I tutor kids in class, I got the HEPA filters, I got masks, we're all distanced out. There's no handshaking or anything. So it's like, we're not going to spread it to anyone because we don't we're not seeing anyone anyway. I feel like we should just...
You're sequestered.
We're sequestered, baby.
I know, man. I get it.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. I can't wait till they open the floodgates and we can all just hang out.
I don't know if that's ever... that's going to be years out, don't you think?
I don't know. God, I pray it isn't. You feel like, when can I go see a concert again?
I don't know.
Seriously.
I don't think movie theaters are ever coming back the way they were. No. Because I've been planning to do movies in my classroom for my students. Like 16 people, 4 Costco
awesome.
pizzas. I got the 16-inch flat screen. I'm either going to use the projector screen or the flat screen. I'm going to get a giant sound system in here. It's going to be part of like the youth group setup, right?
That's awesome.
So imagine that. But you're not going to have proper movie theaters with HEPA filters and stuff. You
think about the cost to make sure they're compliant.
Yes.
What they're going to need to overhaul.
And not only the cost for the movie theaters, but the studios cannot wait for the movie theaters. They're going to realize the return on the movie theaters is too small because the movie theaters can't make money.
Just start streaming.
So that's my point.
Yeah.
We'll buy like the next Avengers movie for $50 the night it comes out. We'll have 16 people with pizza and Coke and stuff in here. It's going to be great.
Doable,
but it's going to be these like micro theaters or like home movies that really float the film industry from here on out. At least that's my That's my thought, that it's like there are parts of our life that we grew up with that will never return.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Well, I mean, would it be the worst thing if we don't have movie theaters?
World, but it hurts. It stings to hear about. Because
Ralph,
you're right. You're right. Ralph, what?
Like, how much do movie theaters really impact your life?
I love movie
Stop
theaters.
it. Stop it.
My wife's a moviegoer. She loves going to the movies.
Really?
Loves it.
Oh, my gosh.
Not with me, though. She likes going with her girlfriends. She's got one girlfriend in particular that, they would see movies. They'd probably see 2 to 3 movies a month. They would go...
before COVID?
Yeah, before COVID. They would make a night of it and go see a movie and then stay in the theater while the credits are rolling. And just start chatting. And I love it. I think it's great. Good for her. Like, I like to get behind a drum kit, you know what I mean? And jam with a band for hours on end.
I was going to say, why haven't you ever invited me to the movies, Ralph?
No. Yeah, I'm not that guy going to the movie theater much, but I would enjoy going to the movies with my wife because I know she loves going to them. And I like a great flick every now and then too. But so, yeah, I think they had a really good impact on my life.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll get some nice chairs in here. Your wife and her lady friend, they can come stream movies in here.
They probably will take you up on that.
Yeah.
Well, no, have you been to the Blackhawk Theater?
I have not.
And okay, how about the one at the Lot in San Ramon?
That's a no.
So those 2 theaters, they're luxurious. You're sitting in a cozy, lazy boy.
Yeah, but isn't it like velvet?
It's you're sitting in a leather chair.
That's a petri dish, son.
And it kicks up the for your feet.
Oh my god.
The recliner. Oh,
it's awesome.
You're in heaven. It was great. You kick the shoes off.
Dude, these TVs, this 60-inch flat screen was awesome. Like $250, $300 at Costco. Why do we even have movie theaters anymore?
It's awesome.
You could get a TV the size of this wall for like $900.
See, I'd love. Yeah, but what's the sound like?
Well, that's why you get a sound system.
Yeah.
$250, $500 off Amazon. Who cares?
See, I'd love to see a concert film on that.
Concert film?
Oh yeah. That's my jam.
You know who I'm not into music and concerts the same way you are.
Oh man.
No, just the same way you are. I love them. I love music. But
do you want to talk about music?
Well, what I do want to tell you is that the only person that I really wish I could have experienced in concert was Queen.
Oh, really?
Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
If I could have been there when him and his goofy teeth and his crappy mustache were just belting out.
He's one of the best.
I heard he had an energy, like a presence on stage.
One of the best, yeah.
That just was second to none. Mm-hmm. Not you two. That guy can kiss my ass.
Hey, whoa.
Look, I
Bono?
like... Come on
very
now.
Political.
Hey.
He's very political, but he's also up there.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, but let's go back to like the October record and the Boy record and the War record.
I love Rattle and Hum. If I could have been around in the 80s when Rattle and Hum came out, that may have defined me as a person. That's fine. Like
Bullet the Blue Sky. What a killer tune.
Yeah, but you got to understand. He was okay. That person was dead by the time I came on the scene.
Yeah, you're
right?
Actually right.
Like so the Bono I know is like
The Fly. He came out as The Fly and became a completely different frontman than he was in the Rattle and Hum and everything prior to that.
Rattle and Hum, All I Want Is You.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
I mean, like those are songs that that struck me when I would be rowing. I was on the rowing machine, and I had tons of U2 on my playlist, but it was all like old U2. It wasn't like. It's a beautiful day.
It's a good song. I like that.
It's a good song, but like for a month.
Yeah.
After that, you're kind of like, shut the fuck up.
Right.
I'm sick of you.
Any memorable concerts in your life?
I did see Green Day and I saw Prince.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Yeah.
I've seen them both. Both awesome.
Yeah. So I got picked up by a friend. He called. They were like, "Hey, we're going to this Green Day concert. We got an extra ticket. You want to come? Great. We'll be right there." I was in 8th grade. And so they took me, or 7th grade, they took me and saw Green Day, which was awesome.
Where'd they play?
I think in the city somewhere.
Okay.
I don't recall exactly, but I remember going over the bridge.
Yeah.
And then I saw Prince and Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan was amazing.
Shaka Khan is amazing.
Shaka Khan.
Yeah. She was in Rufus prior to being solo as Shaka Khan.
She was amazing.
Outstanding singer.
So I saw them at the Concord Pavilion. This chick I dated, girl I dated in high school. The only cool thing about her, which I didn't appreciate at the time, is that her dad was the program manager for the Concord Pavilion. Okay. So she got box seats for every concert she wanted to go to. We only saw Prince. I didn't even ask to go see other stuff.
What'd you think of Prince?
You know what? I thought Shaka Khan had a better presence.
Wow.
So this was like 99 or 98.
Okay.
Prince had hurt himself. He had hurt his hip or something.
This is when I saw him, because I have all my ticket stubs digitally scanned.
When was that?
Saturday, April 10th, 1993. I saw him at the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress.
It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, so we went and saw Shaka Khan and Prince. I thought Shaka Khan was great, but Prince had hurt his hip or something. Like, that guy was an incredible athlete. He was just beating the hell out of himself.
Yeah.
He pushed really hard, right? So he was a little toned down. He had to cancel a couple shows right before, but then this was his first one back on tour.
Yeah.
He was on tour and had to take a couple days off. But Shaka Khan was just so hard, man. She was great. Yes. I saw the Blue Devils as well at the Concord Pavilion.
Did you?
Yes.
You haven't seen many concerts.
I have not. You don't call me often. What do you want me to say?
Well, that's, you've seen a handful.
I saw John Mayer. I really just went to John Mayer because the Counting Crows were opening for him. And so we stayed for a couple John Mayer songs. But
John Mayer's great.
John Mayer's fun.
Yeah.
I really liked the Counting Crows at the time.
Not a huge fan.
Berkeley
band.
Yeah.
Not a huge fan.
I was a Berkeley student at the time, man. I had to go. It was my home team.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of their music, but
why is that? Is it lyrics or is it aesthetic?
It's just it's probably the aesthetic. It's just the vibe and sound. Just, I don't know. It didn't click with me. I know Adam Duritz, I think, is the lead singer of that band. A very accomplished singer-songwriter and obviously an accomplished band. Just not up my alley, man.
You know who I'd like to see is Beck.
Oh man, me too.
Beck would be amazing.
Yeah.
What an incredible artist.
Brilliant musician.
Just talent coming out of it, oozing out of him.
I highly recommend the Guero record of his.
Really?
Yeah, I think you'd really dig it.
I think I dig it too.
Yeah.
Just your enthusiasm there.
You would. I could talk about music for a long time.
Yeah, I feel bad because this is like you and I have this very interesting intersection. Like we were a Venn diagram. Like we have this sliver where we come into contact with each other. Maybe a couple slivers, but after that, there's like this massive world and landscape that both of us kind of digress and diverge from each other.
True.
Because I'm like everything you do professionally blows my mind. Your whole musical knowledge blows my mind, and like I'm good at this little tiny blip of like swearing while I do math problems. Like that's really my main skill in life. Somebody told me the other day, they're like, you could move anywhere, you could do anything. I'm like, dude, I have one skill. It's making fun of 16-year-olds.
You can do jiu-jitsu, my friend.
Yeah, that's not really a road to prosperity in the world.
Something you're pretty good at.
Yeah, it is. Listen, Ralph, it's almost 9:00, buddy. I gotta let you go.
Great talking to you, Matt.
Great talking to you. Thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks, everybody.